Hi there, this is John Cummings. I'd like to introduce my friend Bob Nave. I met him when we we finished the abolition of the death penalty in the state of Connecticut, and we've been friends ever since. Bob is a teacher in the Terryville system, and he has a lot to say.
Woo! Thanks, John.
Thank you. Should we adjust?
Sorry, people over there. Belt it out, so everyone.
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning. I'm still in the morning. This morning I was out in the bay in West Haven floating around on the kayak, so I think my brain is still there. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. As was mentioned, my name is Bob Nave, and I got to know John, as he said, when we were working to abolish the death penalty, which happened in 2012. I first met John, I think it was 2002, when we were having organizing meetings, and John showed up to my house a week early. So I knew I had somebody that we could really use. I worked with the Connecticut Network to Abolish the Death Penalty and Amnesty International, and we just had tremendous success, and I learned a lot from John, and the movement itself was a testament to the idea that peace and love always do win the day, no matter how it looks. I am a high school teacher in Plymouth, Connecticut. I am a social studies teacher, department coordinator at Terryville High School. It's a very small school, about 400 students. This is my 37th year that I'm finishing teaching. I studied music performance and social studies education in college. So for the first 10 years of my career, I was the music director at St. Paul Catholic High in Bristol, and now I'm the department coordinator in Terryville. One of the more distinct things that I was able to do 12 years ago now, I became a United States House of Representatives teaching fellow, and I did an internship in Congress over the summer of 2010, and I learned a lot from that experience, and it's amazing how so much of what I learned there translates into what is happening now, and I'll explain that in a bit. I'm also right now on the State Standards Steering Committee. The social studies state standards are being developed, and so I'm one of the steering committee members. And it is a challenge but a joy to make inclusion and diversity a part of that. But it's also a juggle because we have such disparate school districts in the state, from rural to suburban to urban, and trying to find a language that will appease all is rather difficult. So with that, a lot of this is not scripted, this is scripted, so excuse me for reading. Teachers love kids. They love them so much that they allow themselves to be inundated for 7 hours a day of direct contact, to be bombarded with everything they bring to school with them. In a class of 20, I have 20 different learning styles, learning challenges, personality differences. But I also inherit the collectivity of everything else that is happening in their lives because they bring that all to class with them. Let me give you an example. Bell rings, give the kids a bell ringer. A bell ringer is an activity to get their brains activated. It sounds rather simple, but in those 2 minutes, somebody walks in late with a pass. I have to check the pass and make sure it's legitimate and then tell them what they have to do. A kid breaks their pencil. A kid runs out of ink. The Chromebook runs out of battery or has glitches. Some kids may need clarification. I have to check and make sure the kids who are absent are verified as being absent so I don't have strays walking the halls. If it's a freshman, inevitably they need to use the bathroom. Somehow bell ringers is a natural diuretic. A few kids will need to be reminded to focus, and there is more, but that's just in the first couple minutes of class. You make about 1,000 micro decisions a day, and by the time you get home, your brain is really rather scrambled. And weekends is just a time to get battle ready for the next week. When you teach, you really teach nonstop from the end of August through the middle to end of June. But it is the passion for learning and the love of children that make us want to teach. Now, 37 years ago when I started, the biggest problem that we had were notes in class. I remember one time I said to a couple of kids that I saw passing a note, I just kept a little tally during the 20 minutes that I presented, and I gave them a bill. Postage was 37 cents at the time. And I gave them a bill. I said, this is how much you owe me for stamps, because that's what it would cost. Next day, one of the kids actually showed up with the money. They didn't get the joke. But things were very, very, very different. Now, I have 3 electronic devices with me at all times. I have my laptop, which is what I use to present the lesson and where everything goes through up onto a screen that I'm still learning how to use. It's a new TV ViewSonic system. It's really quite amazing. I have a Chromebook so that if I have kids at home, I could open up the Chromebook, go to Google Meet, and then teach to them through that. And then I have my phone on the desk as well in case I want to do a quick lookup of something, which is really quite a change from 37 years ago. So things have changed a lot. And in 2010, I took 7 kids down to DC. We were involved in getting the World War I Memorial in Washington, DC restored prior to the 100th anniversary of World War I in 2014. And we lobbied in the Senate. The kids went to Senator Rockefeller, McCluskey. It was really sort of cool. But on that trip, I recognized when we took a tour of the Capitol, one of my students had his phone out and was searching things. My job as a social studies teacher had changed. Google has replaced me. And that was the truth of the matter. So at that point in time, I realized we had to change what we did with the kids. So slowly we started to go from just critical thinking to critical thinking with an emphasis on understanding the world so that when they looked things up on Google, they understood what it meant. And trying to teach critical thinking in the technology age, the age of misinformation and an overflow of information, is really, really difficult. The division within our country is very clear, and so the kids come to class with that division. I mentioned before my internship in Congress, one of the things I learned was that in 1995, and this is not blaming the Republicans because the Democrats do it too. In 1995, the Rules Committee, which started the Congress, convened, and Newt Gingrich had just taken over. So the Rules Committee sets the rules for the 2-year session of Congress. It has always been 13 members with 7 in the majority and 6 in the minority. So it would have been 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats. Newt Gingrich appointed 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats, which meant that it was a wash. When the Democrats took over the House, they kept the same thing, 9 and 4. So they had the chance to right the wrong, and they didn't. And that is just deep. And so what you see with this divide, with this logjam, that's where it starts. It's the Rules Committee. Because once that's in place, everything else is completely biased. And that, I think, is something we have to address 27 years later. So we get this great divide in the country, and then with mass media, you have all the different venues for the children to see. And one of the things I do is, when a big event happens, I have the kids go to Fox News on their computer and CNN. And they look at the two differences, because those are really, two of the opposites. And the kids start to understand that position is very objective, so they have to search out the truth from all that, and that's a very hard thing for such young minds to do. So when January 6th happened, we were home that day. It was a Wednesday, and we have every Wednesday at home so the school could be sanitized. I had a department meeting via the internet with my department, and we were like, how are we going to teach this? It was clearly an attempted overthrow of the government, an insurrection that we all know how it was caused. How are we going to teach this, and how are we going to remain objective? And we realized we can't remain objective. There comes a point in time where you have to say, this is what happened. And we also had to realize that our jobs are at stake. So we strategized how we could do that. So those are the challenges that we have to face within the social studies part of education. I don't know if you're aware, but the legislature mandated that a new course be offered as an elective this coming fall. Every high school in the state must offer this. It's a course on African American and Latino history. And it looks at history through those lenses. It's a phenomenal course. I'm going to be trained the week after we get out of school for a week on the curriculum and how to implement it fully. Being active at the state level, I cannot begin to tell you the amount of schools that have protested this curriculum. They believe it's either critical race theory, we hate white people course, or the replacement theory. It really is quite amazing to see that happen, and the fear that people have when their dominance is challenged. And it always leads me to say, what are you afraid of if you are not in the majority statistically? Are you afraid of treating people, having you be treated like you have treated people before? And that really resonates with a lot a lot of the kids. So teaching today could be challenging. Even Columbus, the whole idea of Columbus, trying to get Columbus Day erased from the calendar, is challenging when it's a clear wrong. So teaching has its, believe me, challenges. The pandemic brought all sorts of challenges with it. And of course, school shootings bring something to the table that I never dreamed I'd have to deal with 37 years ago. On the way home from the Bay on 84, I heard on NPR somebody saying teachers should be armed. And to me, that's like victim blaming. You know, arm the teachers, get the schools more secure, Ted Cruz, bulletproof glass, blah, blah, blah. That's victim blaming. The problem is not the school. And that incensed me. And it's clear, anybody who knows anything about teaching, that would be an impossibility to try to do that. The crowd is mature enough to remember All in the Family. Do you remember All in the Family? There's an episode where Archie said, I know how to stop all the skyjackings, arm all the passengers. That got a roar from the crowd. And look what's being said today. He said there should be 3 snipers above bank counters. So if somebody tries to rob the bank, they could shoot the robber. And Mike Meathead said, well, Arch, what if they miss and get a little old lady? He said, that's okay, the other 2 will get them. And that's the mentality that we're hearing today. I mean, that's funny stuff back in the 70s, but that's our reality today. So all these things are what challenge us as we go into a day. Then Pride Month, we are very thankful for Pride Month, but there's so much work still to be done within education. Many curriculum does not have, they do not have anything about LGBTQ plus topics within it. Health class is often the place where people will talk about LGBTQ plus issues, and quite frankly, oftentimes gym teachers teach the course, and they might not be the best suited to teach that. I will say that I teach sociology and psychology. I've had kids leave my classroom, actually withdraw from the class when we get onto the topic. So the fear is very, very tragic. And as was said, if I remember my statistic right, the life expectancy for black trans women is mid-30s. That is just unbelievable. So there are challenges, but education is something that I would never ever think of getting rid of in my life. When we ended the death penalty, I was like, maybe I should go to law school. It's like, no, I want to stay right where I am. My midlife crisis kept me right where I was.
You got a book to write.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's. So to wrap this up, I spoke a lot about the challenges, but we really need to look at the positive. We have students now who are more engaged than ever. We have students who have information at their ready if they know how to use it. We have kids who are not happy with the status quo. We have teachers who are willing to literally put their lives on the line to spark them. And as Rita Pearson said, teachers have got to love their kids. And when you look at the teachers that are out there, they do. Kids don't learn from people they don't like. So I want to end with a couple of my mottos for teaching. One of my mottos is give every kid a chance every day. That is just so key to me. I believe that every kid every day has a fresh start. It's a little hard when the day after day after day kids come in with the same challenges, but then you think, what are they going through at home? When you looked at the pandemic, some of the kids had to stay at home, and that's the worst place for them to be. So give a kid a chance every day. One of my other mottos that I tell the kids, and they don't quite get it at first, but every child is a pot of potential. When I look into my classroom and I see how many faces there are, each one of those faces is a pot of potential. And that is tremendous to think that you could shape that pot of potential and hopefully spark something in them. All kids have genius inside them. And here's the bubble we teach in, and here's the bullseye. Most kids, that's your valedictorian. Most kids are not there. So you got to find that genius in all the kids. And then you have to meet the kids where they are. This is where you are, and this is where you got to move them. And with those mottos and a few more, I've enjoyed teaching. I would not think of doing anything but that. And I'll wrap up with a story to tell you how you never know what we do makes a change. Back in 2002, I had a student who was just a real itch. He was difficult. It was also the year my father was dying of cancer, so it was a tough year. By May, it was critical with my dad. He passed away late in May, and that kid, I was like, I can't do this. He's one of 2 kids in my entire career I've ever kicked out of my classroom. If kids and I don't get along, stay and suffer. So the kid, I just like, no, he is disrupting the class. So I asked the assistant principal to remove him from the class. Years later, it was probably about 5-6 years ago, I got a Facebook request from that kid. I was like, well, that's odd. So all these years, so I accepted, and every year on the birthdays I wish happy birthday. The next year when it was his birthday, I sent him a private message and I said, listen, I did bad by you. I didn't give you my best. It was not the best time of my life. I didn't give you my best. I apologize for that. He wrote back and he said, thank you, but you did everything you could to help me. He goes, I should thank you because I went to prison, he said. I got out of prison and I realized you're the only person who ever showed me limits. And I couldn't believe that. So in one of my worst moments, I thought, it was very powerful. So always remember, it's the things that you do for people, the kids in front of you or the people at large, that really make a difference. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for having me speak to you today. It was my honor.